Hi and welcome to the Sport Psych revision screencast on personality. So this is going to be a revision run through of the topic. There'll be some things for you to do as we go along. We'll see how we go. So the first topic within personality, trait theories. So typical question there, we can see it's an explain question for trait theory of personality for 3 marks. So see if you can get 3 points on trait theory. Go. Okay. Hopefully you've got some of the answers. So we can see that the first point is going to be either around genetics, or that it's innate. You might have used the word innate. That means that the traits are stable and enduring, they last for a long time, and then always apply it to behaviour. So what happens to behaviour? If traits are inherited and they don't change, then the behaviour will therefore be consistent. So the second theory, Bandura's social learning theory. Can you get 3 points to explain how social learning theory affects your behaviour and how we learn that behaviour? 2 methods for that. Okay, so Bandura's social learning theory, nurture theories, is all about learning, as is suggested in the title. So experience, but it's the environment. So the E here stands for environment. Therefore, behaviour is predicted by the state of the environment, is therefore inconsistent. It changes according to the environment. How do we pick up this behaviour? We learn behaviour according to Bandura in 2 ways. The first one is modelling, that we copy others. Lots of studies showing that we copy other people, significant others, role models, parents, etc. Secondly, if that behaviour is then reinforced, then the model behaviour is more likely to be repeated. So the 2 things together, modelling times reinforcement, equals good learning. So lastly then, interactionist theories. So again, a typical question here, and we're adding in how knowledge of the interactionist theories can help us predict behaviour of performers. Go, try and get 3 points. You might want to throw in the equation on this one, Lewin's equation, around how this theory works, because you would normally pick a mark up for that. If you haven't got that, put that in, add that in. And the second thing is, for interactionist theory, you can normally get 2 points for behaviour. So we've obviously applied trait theory and social learning theory to how it affects behaviour. Interactionist theory, we can get 2 points for this. So make sure you've got 2 points for that. Okay, so the equation is that the behaviour is the function of, that's the F, personality and environment. So the 2 things put together. So it's a combination. So the equation is really the same as this first point. It's a combination of trait and social learning theories. It's personality and environment. The 2 points that we said about behaviour, the behaviour would be consistent in the same environment, but it would change within a different environment. So people would behave in a certain way in one environment, and in that same environment they would behave the same. But if we go into a different environment, then we would change our behaviour. So one of the main interactionist theories is Hollander's 3 circles, 3 structures of personality. So you need to know the 3 circles and what they are. So quickly fill in the boxes. So try to get a title for each one and a quick description if you can. Okay, so we start in the middle with the psychological core. So this is the real you. It's those basic motives, very hard to change. So the lines here, that one is purposely a thick line. It's hard to change. This is the trait theory part of the interactionist theory. Secondly, in the middle is the typical responses. So it's very hard for us to actually measure the psychological core. We measure the core by our typical responses, our typical behaviours. And this indicates what our psychological core is like. And as we get to the outside, the role-related behaviour is where we might actually adapt and change that typical response. So we might have a typical response in most situations, but in a certain environment, in a certain situation, we might change that. And this is the social learning part of the theory. So just looking at a question, I think this is a good one to look at because it's a more complex question than some of the others that we've looked at already. We can obviously get a straightforward, explain the main principles of trait, social learning or interactionist theory, but this one you can see it was using the knowledge of interactionist theory to help a coach to improve the performance of an individual player. So this was a little bit that asked you to apply your knowledge to how a coach might use it. So this was a harder question. You can see in the explanation of the theory stuff that a quick description of the interactionist theory is personality and social learning, and that behaviour alters. You got 1 mark for your equation, and then you can see that you got your 3 marks here for knowing Hollander's theory. So first part of the question, which would have been a submax of 2 or 3, was basic interactionist knowledge. But how do we apply this theory? And really, to apply it to improve the performance of an individual player, we must use the social learning part of the theory. So we're looking at that we can alter behaviour, okay, and so obviously we would have to identify something that we'd want to change. So using an example there of teaching an aggressive player to be less aggressive, to be more assertive, or an introvert not to become more aroused, and that we can obviously try to do something about that. So in this example here on the bottom, moving the person to avoid that aggressive behaviour. So 3 methods of testing personality. Can you quickly get the 3 methods? And can you get 1 advantage and 1 disadvantage of using each method? So I'm hoping that you've got questionnaires, observation and interview. If we quickly look at questionnaires, so advantages, we can collect lots of data very quickly. We can do that in not much time. It's very easy to prepare. Disadvantages, that we get bias. People don't understand the questions. They might give socially desirable answers, etc. Observations and interviews can give us much more detail and depth of knowledge, but it would take this highly skilled observers or interviewers, and it would take a lot more time. So the dreaded personality profiling question. So make sure that if you see that word in a question, that rings a bell around what the topic is. So personality profiling is we're profiling athletes or performers based on their personality. So make sure that you know the two approaches. So you should at the very least be able to name the two sides of personality profiling, the two approaches, and hopefully you can give a quick description of what they are saying. So obviously we're looking at firstly the credulous approach. They give it credit. They give personality profiling credit. They say yes, we should use personality profiling to try to identify top performers. This can be used as part of a talent ID program. So examples of this are that we would highlight either performers who have the necessary generic traits, i.e. confidence, being able to handle pressure, these types of personality traits that will be useful in any sport. Secondly, it might be that we target certain traits for certain sports. So a golfer being calm, for example. Secondly, the skeptical approach says, well, actually, there's no clear link. There's no clear link within research that suggests that personality equals top performance. And they also say that personality can change. They also say that there are more important things like physiological profiles, like skill levels, etc., and that therefore we shouldn't use personality profiling in sport. So just looking at this question, making sure that we're aware of the type of question that might come up on this. Just the first thing is the command word of discuss. So that should give you a little bit of a clue that we're looking at two sides. So obviously we're looking at the agree, credulous approach and the disagree, skeptical approach. So the discuss should give you those two sides to that answer. And it's the suggestion that a personality questionnaire can be an effective predictor of performance. And so we needed to pick out that bit, the effective predictor of performance. And you can see here that they've actually said over here that this isn't about personality questionnaires, it's about whether personality can predict success. So they gave you one for a named personality test here at the top, but then the credulous approach, basically the answers that we've already talked about, and then the skeptical the same. The conclusion on all of this is that there isn't really any evidence that suggests either way, so it's an argument that can carry on. So this leads us in. One way of doing this personality profiling would be to use the Morgan's profile of mood states questionnaire and highlight what traits they have according to this questionnaire, the athletes. And obviously Morgan did this research with various sports and came up with a profile of elite performers. You should know what that elite performer's profile looks like. You should be able to sketch the graph. You should know the shape of the graph. You should know the 6 criteria that are used and which ones are high and which ones are low for elite performers. So get that down now. Okay, so you should recognise that the graph looks like this, and this is obviously the elite performers profile. We tend to call it an iceberg profile because of the shape of the graph, and you can see that that's the average scores here. The negative traits, tension, depression, anger, fatigue, confusion, are relatively low. So all these scores here are low, or lower than the average population. We can see that the key difference between an elite performer is this one up here, which is for vigour. So vigour, being vigorous, striving to achieve, etc. This is the thing that Morgan found in his research, the trait that elite performers have a lot higher than non-elite performers across a range of different sports. it's worth you knowing, for the sake of a question, being able to name the 6 traits down here. Knowing that vigour is higher in elite performers is worth another mark, and the iceberg profile is also worth mentioning. The other thing you need to be able to do is to be able to criticise this research. So can you get 2 or 3 criticisms? Okay, so some problems are that it measures mood, and that's not personality, and mood, of course, can change. Not all successful athletes have this profile, and many unsuccessful ones do have the profile. So this shows that it's not actually something that we should be looking for, as in the credulous approach. It's also not surprising that negative mental health is associated with poor performance, and vice versa. It's not surprising that someone with the positive profile is doing well and performing well. And obviously we've got various problems with questionnaires that we talked about before that you could use in terms of bias and stuff like that. So again, just looking at a question on this, again a discuss question. So we were looking at agreeing and disagreeing, and whether this is an effective method of looking to identify potential elite performers, as in the personality profiling approach. So yes, it is that we agree with that it is a good and effective method. Things like that mood states can change, and they can be more accurate than stable traits. So obviously things change depending on the situation within sport. We would agree because Morgan's research found that top performers do have this iceberg profile, and that they have higher levels of particularly vigour, slightly higher of anger as well, but the vigour is the main one. Against that, and again you might be asked to criticise, as was the points on the last slide, around that some elite performers don't have it, some non-elite do have it, and that those elite performers develop their positive mood state as a result of success. So it could be the other way around. Okay, so that's the end of personality. I suggest you give yourself a quick test. So some of the questions that you should be able to answer. Can you get 3 points on trait theory? Go, 1, 2, 3. Three points on social learning theory. Go. Three points on interactionist theory. Can you link it to Hollander? Can you get the 3 levels of Hollander's theory of interactionist theory? Two approaches of personality profiling. Profile of mood states, can you describe it? Lastly, how do we measure personality? So this brings us to the end of the screencast. Thanks for listening, and good luck if the topic is on the exam.